So let's get into the pre-market break and all the stuff we were covering here in the Discord this morning. So you can start here at that open, right? So last night we were talking about the easy long trap open. A giant gap like that always comes back and tests the gap, never fills the gap, right? So a lot of the times, especially with a bullish catalyst like the government reopening, you're just going to get force up scams by the algos, right? And we know how to play those. Manipulation's simple to play. So when we have this high-low fib out, we wait for it to dip into the gap, right? Easy long trap open. And like I said, just play over under the 5-minute 10 SMA as we discuss in Discord and the VWAPs. So you can see here in the blue, 5-minute 10 SMA, played, perfect. We had the overnight swing for a few thousand on NQs there as we just went for that 5-minute gap open. Really, there's nothing else to do. It's pretty simple. I wish there was a better explanation here, except for the magnets. So we found ourselves up here at the 3618, and that is the 5-minute opening fib, right? And our favorite scalp is pushing into the 3618, coming back down to the 2618, and then making a decision of which way she wants to go. Right now, we are waiting for a 100 EMA tag, right? So we can go long off the 100 EMA tag right here, since we have absolutely no tags of it all day, or a short that would panic under and actually provide confirmation down to the 100 tag of the 5, only because the opening minute on the 5 does not have a back test after the 1618. So rules always right here, up to the 1618 from the fib, down to the 100 did not happen. So when we extend all the way to the 3618, there's generally a high percentage chance that we retrace from here back down to at least the pivot, and we have the 100 EMA coming in before that. So if we extend these to the right, and we obviously stay under that 6820, that's the 3618, we end up coming down, breaking that 2618, whatever it happens to do, we'll be looking for that. The catalyst for us, where we were looking downside, was whenever VIX decided to do something on support, but she got caught in an algo sell, didn't she? Right? Pretty easy. Algo sells are something where it gets trapped at the 10 SMA, and you see that in the 5-minute chart. We had the reset right here at the 50 RSI. That's why we always use our, let me change this one thing, RSI MAC, the cleanest of the clean. I gotta set this order here real quick. Obviously getting those free monies. There we go. So with the volatility index, again, having a daily gap, this is why the opening short could come down to that 100 EMA. This is the catalyst. We have a daily gap on the downside. We generally don't hold daily gaps very well on VIX. They don't like them. It generally likes to fill daily gaps, right? You never see an instance where it's like, oh yeah, we have a perfect daily gap and we just go runner, like the market does a gap and go on the daily. We don't get that from the VIX, generally ever. And when we do, we tend to get that filled right away. Sorry, Monday. So as you see on the daily chart here, you don't see a whole lot of anything, right? There's nothing up here. There's no gaps, right? Very rarely. And when they do fill, great. So right now we're in the daily gap down, which means the SPY and, QQQ coming into market open still has a very high % chance to drop, right? So VIX can fill that opening gap. And if we get that, we'll get the VIX to hopefully go to yesterday's lows. Now, this one thing, which is the catalyst of overnight, is kind of hurting us a little bit for that move, right? And I say that because the biggest thing we've been messing with is the government shutdown, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, and then it finally gets a little bit of news overnight where they're going to strike a deal. Okay, well, psychological catalyst trump all TA. And that's what we were talking about in Discord, right? So if the TA on this day, it's rare, but if that yesterday's lows doesn't get tagged, and if we don't drop out of the gate here, it's because that we have an interesting psychological narrative, right? And that's what's keeping us from clicking into perfect regular TA based stuff. Because if we seen a gap up like this and a monster runner, and we know impulse moves when it runs from yesterday's lows and flies all the way up and just keeps impulsing, it generally continues through pre and overnight, right? And then it goes to the 100 EMA, and we always long off the 100 EMA. And here's that green 100 EMA attempt, and we shied that beach by a long shot, right? No fun, no nothing. It just shied and she was gone with the wind, right? Which necessarily not a bad thing, but that is the catalyst for psychological. We couldn't even back test the 100, right, of the fib of the opening 5 either. it bought up ahead of time, and that was the 100 EMA's chance as well. So we know that the impulse and reason to drop is going to be exceptionally hard. It's going to take a lot of volume. So we're going to have to do that closer to open, not through the early pre-market. So we found the chop zone at Fibonacci as always, penny to penny. Fibs are the best indicator no matter what. And we're stuck in the zone. So the two things we're going to be looking for is the volatility index to turn around, get that MACD swap, get off the RSI, make an impulse move up, and we could drop this all the way back down to some of those GPs. That's if. Our first target is anything under 68.20. We'll come to that 100 EMA, and I'll look for the long style targets here, right? Because we do have an opportunity to still see easy longs, because nothing is going to drop until that VIX turns back around. And right now it is in an algo-controlled sell, which means it can't get away from the 10 SMA. The algos just say, nope, you're going down. They flip the switch, and that's it. We don't have any choice. We just watch, and that's what we see. So we don't bother with any kind of back and forth metric there, any kind of anything. We just let it do what it wants to do. That's manipulation. So that brings us to, because it's easy to identify when we can get the manipulation to be seen like that. That's the easy part. And then we can actually play the manipulation, because they manipulate this stuff all the time. That's our specialty here. So this was the fib from last week. Said to watch real big, right? We had one short call at the end of the day, and we nailed that one from, yeah, we have one impulse down, and that was into the GP lower, which I had on here, the 1618 as well. I did a bunch of videos, so I deleted a bunch of crap, so I might have cleared that chart for those videos. Looks like I did. Nope, there it is. All right. So this was that last call from last week, and we said, okay, as long as it stays under the 3, 6, and 8, we'll end up in this GP. So we made this red indicator right here saying anything under. Our final short target is in this box. Great. So anything under, there it is. Final short target, there it is. Perfect call. Now reverse, right? And that's what caused the big old range hiccup at our short target, which we hit right there. So that brings us all the way back to the 15, right? So this one was the interesting point for today, because obviously from Thursday we left wide open GPs. QQQ has a big stack of them. It had 4, SPY does not. So it's a little, back and forth. It's pre-market, so we don't pay attention to perfect GPs like we do in live. But this 15-minute stretch right here, that's a bunch of 15 minutes in a row with no GP tags like we always like to do. That was the cycle point. Look where it picked the bottom. Lo and behold, Fibonacci telling you every single piece of the pie you need as usual. 1618 is best pivot, right? As always. Let's delete this. We'll show you that Thursday pivot. If this thing ever zooms correctly. It's just flat zooming right now. All right, there's the 1618. So what happened? Gap up, obvious. Push. Broke over the 1618. Back tested the best pivot that we always say is the 1618, and continued. Lo and behold, too easy. What's that do? Well, gave us an algo at 3N. We said, watch that GP fill. That will be a long potential big time. What did we see? Another algo. Filled the GP as said. Big time, right? So now we have this algo right here, 730. Nice half hole. We maintain above 667. Welcome to the GP. That's it. Simple as that. We're all in longs right now. We have nothing to do unless it pulls back for an add into that 100 EMA, because your best case scenario is obviously the 15-minute Fibonacci holding the 100, pushing up into the GP, then failing to the 100 EMA. The other scenario is like, okay, we can take a short back down here. And if it does short down here and holds the 100 EMA and gives up a little bit and builds that support, we are still going to target, but we're just going to buy all the dips. And we don't have a heavy long position right now. We're only riding a couple ES. We're up 4, nothing crazy. So I would expect to go red back down on some of these pulls here to test anywhere into the pre-market open. That's worst case scenario, 676, bottom of the algo, but 100 EMA is pretty much the savior. So we're going to see that hopeful tag of the 100 EMA closer to open. And what does that tell us? Well, the catch up, right? Here's that algo. 100 EMA is forever calculating, chasing action. So by the time the opening comes, you get the 100 EMA at the exact place where the GP is, and that would be your best little algo dip. If it happens in pre, doesn't really matter. It's going to open up on the 100 EMA then, and then we'll be sitting down here off the over under of the 100 EMA. Once we mount 677, you got this GP open. If it wants to open and start dying under the 100 EMA in 677, that is our job to follow suit on the VIX protocol, okay? So the VIX would be going up to the 100 EMA and yesterday's lowest potential. That is a wide gap. So if this thing dies off, fine. The bigger trades still will be the relax here, I think. So the two magnets are just going to be above or below 677, pre-market open, 10 points on ES, and then the GP is 12. So if you measure between 677, which is the 100 fib, you got 13 points up or about 10 down. And that's what we need to figure out. Now, the VIX, because it's in that algo cell, we had just this consolidation as VIX goes. We do have a little bit leaned better on the short term down and then up. So I'm not going to stick to any longs, big macro, big positions, blah, 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 until this thing tells me what it wants to do at the 100 EMA. I don't mind riding a couple longs back and forth. We got some good P&Ls, and then we can get that GP great over 677. But if we start to see that weakness here, I will flip that faster than you could believe, and that will be the reason for the VIX going up. Now, the only bad part is because we have a perfect technical analysis play. You know what that means, right? Perfect technical analysis play is right here, which means the VIX generally fills those dailies, but psychological catalysts, right, is the government reopening. That takes precedent over TA. I don't care what your TA says. Nobody does. Trump tweets, don't give a shit what your TA says. None of it, right? When we have perfect TA, which I love to see, don't get me wrong, it does not matter one bit. We have a perfect VIX setup for an opening short, right? Perfect SPY setup for an opening short. It would go down to the 100 EMA. But with his psychological catalyst as big as the one we have, with this guy here posted in Discord, which means price action has pushed into the 15-minute range we have talked about earlier, and it's scam shied that GP, right? She pushed up and it's like, I'm going to, just kidding, and came back down and just consolidated the 100. So if 677 goes up, it still can be a pop to short day. So I will either short the failure of the GP or long the hold of the 100 EMA up to the GP. If for whatever reason VIX goes on a tangent, ignores the psychological catalyst for upside, and just blasts up and starts killing this thing all the way down, I'll reassess. But between those two, we have the best case scenario of 677 over under. I'm going to lean to the 100 EMA first and look long first. That is option one. So holds of 677, scams down, hits 100 EMA, maybe the open, remount 677, bam. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, flop. And then we got to reassess at levels, okay? So those are the two biggies. We'll see what the 100 EMA 5-minute has to do. We'll see what the opening drive looks like. And regardless, we'll aim for that GP as long as we are above 677.